Welcome to Heart to Heart. I'm Lori from Mobile, Alabama, and I'm delighted to be here today with some of my fellow amends from the Hearties Facebook group.
I'm Dawn Bateman from Wiley, Texas.
And I'm Marg Stark from San Diego, California.
And we are privileged today to be joined by the actress who is bringing us Cleopatra, Juliet, and so much, a whole lot of Rosemary this season. Pascale Hutton.
Yay!
Yay! I'm so happy
lot
to
of
be
Rosemary.
here.
A lot of Rosemary.
We love it.
That's funny.
So before we get into talking about season 9, we want to cover the really important thing, which is, how is your puppy?
Oh, he's so good. He's so good. I was the one person in the family who was really the holdout in the whole debate about whether to get a puppy. My kids have been campaigning pretty hard, and my husband was on board. And I kept saying, no, I don't think so. I don't think I don't think our lifestyle is conducive, blah, 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 and on and on. and then this puppy just kind of landed in our lap, and we just kind of went, okay, are we doing this? And we surprised my kids. Yeah, it was pretty great. We brought him in the evening. He arrived, and we just knocked on the door of our house, and then he was just sitting there. And so my son opened the door, and he was like, what? Like total disbelief. It was probably the best surprise we've ever pulled off.
What age?
Yeah. So, and pardon?
What age is your?
He's just 6 months now. He's 6 months now, and so
I mean, you're talking your child that you surprised.
No, he's 11, and then my younger one is 6, and so they were just blown away. And then hilariously, I am without a doubt the dog's favorite. He loves me so much.
Mama.
And we're just like, the two of us are like two peas in a pod. We go everywhere together, and I love him so much. I just sit there gazing at him going, he's so cute. Aren't we so lucky? He's so cute.
Yes. I love the post that you had. So is it a doodle?
He's not. He's a Portuguese water dog, actually.
I love the Portuguese water dog.
Yeah.
I have a doodle.
A labradoodle, or
I have a golden doodle, and he also is very attached to me, and the bones that I tried to get him to be entertained with are not so much working. So we could have another guest with us, and so I'm just warning you. As
is he just a puppy?
Person. Yes, he's 17 months, so total COVID.
Okay, yeah, so still kind
but
of.
Those Portuguese water dogs are amazing. And they
exactly.
don't shed, which is also the doodle doesn't shed. So
exactly.
Beautiful thing.
No, I don't have doodles. I have 2 rescues, which is shed.
But love.
Exactly. Yeah, you tolerate it.
Right, exactly.
I love dogs, but I'm currently between them right now. So I'll become a puppy mama again sometime soon.
The right one will just come into your life at the right moment.
I'm sure it will. That's the way it always happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of how things always happen, tell us how you're feeling about season 9. You know, your character has always had its twists and turns through the years. But lately, she's been the steadying influence on Lee, which is a bit of a first.
Yes, very refreshing, I think. I think it's been really fun to have that role reversal between the two of them, and have Rosemary have these real moments of clarity, and especially in her new position as the editor-in-chief. She
makes that quite clear. Yes,
she's very clear about what that role is, and what the expectations are of that, and responsibilities of that position. And I think that that's really neat to see. I also thought it was really fun to see that even though she's got all this confidence, and she's very self-assured about what that role is, and in that new professional position, that we also saw that insecurity and vulnerability when she was like, maybe we're spending too much time at work. I don't know. Maybe it's too much. Maybe this was a mistake. Has the spark gone out? Like, and to see that kind of insecurity in her. I mean, it's what I've always loved about Rosemary, is that there's, of course, the overriding, very prominent side to her personality that's very presentational and grand and full of enthusiasm and joie de vivre, and I love that. But I've always loved that we're able to like kind of flip flop and see these other sides, because of course that's human nature. Human nature is multifaceted, and so I just have always loved that they've captured that, and I think it's really fun to see that dynamic and how it informs their relationship.
And she has so many layers, and I love how you unwrap her layers for us.
Yes, and this season especially, I felt like we've kind of pulled back a bunch of layers, and you know, it's always the challenge of you're in season 9. How do you keep these characters fresh? How do you keep the actors engaged and the audience engaged, all that stuff? And I feel like the writers have done a really beautiful job of finding those new facets to characters and relationships.
Cool.
Yeah, it's almost more human. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, you have, you know, we have nuances in our world. I'm so glad that we have now that you have some nuances in the relationship and, you know, even personally. So that's great.
That's really cool. Well, now every Heartie can list their favorite Rosemary scenes, from the moment you yanked your bag off the top of that stagecoach in season 1 to the never commit your heart unless there's jewelry scene, then sitting by Lee's bedside when he was injured, and then the talks with Elizabeth. So do you have a favorite Rosemary scene?
I have so many favorite Rosemary scenes, but one that really always stands out in my mind is, and I think it was in season 3, was when Lee hurt himself and he was in bed, and Rosemary came in, and she was first very taken aback, and it was really basically a very minor injury, but she was very taken aback, and then she was trying to mother him and nurture him, and then Faith came in, as Faith was kind of a new character, a new nurse in town, and she was trying to almost compete with Faith in terms of tending to Lee. And why I like that scene so much is I felt like that really of course, like that was well into Lee and Rosemary's kind of relationship and courtship. I mean, that had started in season 2, but I felt like that, at least for me personally, I felt like I cracked the nut of what that relationship was for Lee and Rosemary, but also for Pascale and Cavan. That scene, I don't know, I just was feeling very mischievous that day. And so I kept on adding in all these things. I think part of what was so fun for me is that Cavan was stuck. He was stuck in that bed and he couldn't get away from me, and he couldn't really do much to react. And so I was just like, ah ha ha, here I go.
Got you where I want you.
So I kept on trying to feed him soup and like stuff it in his mouth. And he was just like, are you serious? And I think that's when he talks about that as being a moment when he went, oh, okay, she's that kind of actor. She's just gonna try and bug me in the scene and see how I'm gonna react. And so I felt like that really cracked the nut for me. And then it was just like gangbusters after that. The two of us just took off and really had so much fun together. And so that one always stands out for me as being a very, very important scene in terms of the trajectory of the character and the trajectory of just my professional experience on the show. But also like our relationship, it really always stands out to me because it was kind of that first one where that spark kind of happened. And then this season, there is a scene this season that I will say is the most vulnerable scene I've ever perform like that we've ever seen from
Oh.
Rosemary.
Wow.
Wow.
And I am, it's coming up. I can't remember what episode it is. It's one, maybe the second last episode or maybe the very last episode. And it's just so special to me because it really is this real vulnerability from her that more than we've ever seen before. And so I think I think it's a really beautiful moment. Again, because we always see that kind of bigness, and then to have this really tiny scene and tiny moment. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm looking forward to it. I remember that I tweeted, I think it was season 2 when Lee was introduced. And when you see it on the screen, it was like, okay, how did they get that kind of chemistry? And then I think someone tweeted and you said you didn't have any chemistry read.
We did not.
And that to me is so part because it's there. I mean, truly.
I know. It was really just honestly serendipitous.
Yeah.
Serendipitous. It that it worked out as well. I wasn't even told when his character showed up. I wasn't even told that that was a potential love interest for Rosemary.
Really?
I in my mind, I was still thinking, because if you remember the beginning of season 2, there was still the dynamic with Jack going on. And so my mind was still kind of on that, like, oh, how's that going to resolve itself? And then I had these few scenes and I remember thinking, oh, like, what's happening here? Like, is this, and I didn't even know that his character was going to stay on the show for a long time. I wasn't sure if he was just coming in to do like a couple episode guest star. I just didn't know anything. Cavan, on the other hand, had been told that he was going to be potentially a love interest for my character if the chemistry was there. So the stakes were high for him, but I was oblivious. I didn't know anything. And so, but it just, we had worked together once before on a different show, the 4400, or I think it was the 4400. And it was, I only had like a couple episodes. He was on the show more regularly, I think. But I remember we didn't even really have that many scenes together, but I remember us meeting on set and me thinking, oh, this guy's got a really great sense of humor. I really liked just chatting with him. But again, it was so brief. But we did get along right away when he was on When Calls the Heart. And that scene, especially where he's on the motorcycle and then Rosemary hops on the back.
Yeah.
People have mentioned that scene to me, that they were like, that was a turning point where it was kind of like no looking back. These two are destined to be together. And right. I can see it. It was really, that was a fun scene to do. And it really was like, we're on a ride together, and never looked back.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. That's just so interesting about the history and 9 seasons, good grief. There's just a lot of things that we kind of think about in your journey, not including all of, the Elizabeth and, all that kind
I know. There's a lot of history, history, characters, and a lot with the town and everything.
We interviewed Allie, one of our help me, Marg,
she's the writer's assistant, but also wrote the upcoming episode 9.
Oh, okay,
and we call her the Hope Valley Oracle because she has the 250-page show Bible literally.
That's what
in
I want
her
to
head.
know. You were talking about the history. She had like a binder of, she went notes and notes and notes from every episode and what's the birthday of Rosemary,
favorite color,
I mean,
the whole thing.
What are favorite colors and things like that.
That's really fascinating to me. I actually didn't know that existed. I maybe like to take a look at that.
Yeah, you can only imagine what's in there about Rosemary.
I'm gonna say,
I know.
With another HFR, I think we have to on a closed glass. It was just like, let's open into just one page. I just want
You need selected readings from it.
Exactly. So funny. But history, you never know. Mm-hmm. So we had some Hearties to submit some questions, worldwide. A lot of interest with Rosemary, as you can imagine. So the first question is from Lisette Sejbin from Netherlands. And they asked, did you request a new job for Rosemary, or was the newspaper editor a writer idea?
Oh, such a good question. Such a good question. It did come from Kevin and I, actually.
Really?
Yes. And it obviously, like, they took the idea and ran with it. What Kevin and I like pitched as an idea, and what we thought would be really fun, because this was back at the end of season 7, I think, actually. We thought it would be, after 7 seasons going into 8, potentially 9, potentially 10, and on. We thought we need to create a new dynamic for this couple. What do we do to create this new dynamic? And we thought it would be really great if we put them working together, and they're so opposite in so many ways. Obviously, the way they would approach work, their work kind of style is so different. And we thought, let's put them in that situation and see comedy is tension, right? You need tension to kind of have that. And so we thought, let's put them in that situation, and the tension that would come from them being literally in such close proximity to one another, having to navigate each other's work styles, workspace, home life versus work life, and how do you form those boundaries. It just seemed like a wealth of storyline that was worth exploring. And so Kevin, so that was something we were brainstorming, the two of us, and we were like, what could it be? What could it be? I came to the conclusion that I felt that working in the dress shop, as fun a storyline as that was, and it created a lot of opportunity for like female storylines and friendship. I think we all knew Rosemary was not going to be happy there forever. And I thought that was disingenuous to the character, to have this woman that was so larger than life suddenly happy just working in a dress shop. Nothing against working in a dress shop. I just felt like Rosemary was a bit more ambitious than that. And I thought she would get unsettled and want to kind of move on and push beyond that. And so John Tinker and I had a bunch of conversations around that idea. And then Kevin looked into the idea of William Randolph Hearst and his kind of newspaper empire. And we thought, oh, that's it. The town doesn't have a paper to speak of. Like, we spoke of it in season, what was it? In season 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then it hasn't really been spoken of. And so we thought, what happens if Rosemary and Lee start up this newspaper, and it kind of turns into this newspaper empire, and Rosemary can kind of use more of her skills and talents and intelligence in a way that's going to actually satisfy her. And that whole theme, that's the overriding running theme in the show, when calls the heart, like follow your heart and fulfill your dreams and fill that calling that you have within you. And I thought running a newspaper and would get closer to that for Rosemary. And so there was a lot of conversations about that. There's always a bigger question of, although we thought it would be great for Rosemary and Lee, does it create opportunities for bigger storylines that other characters can be brought into? We thought, well, the newspaper, it just is ripe with that. It involves everybody.
Yes.
And also then they're friends with everybody, but how do you be friends with everybody and have an unbiased paper? And we're seeing that play out, especially with Lee and Hickam this season. And and so anyways, we thought it was ripe with story possibilities all around. It was. And fortunately, John Tinker and the writers got on board. And so that seed kind of started percolating and coming to fruition throughout season 8. And then now in 9, it's like it's happening. It's fully on. So it's been really fun. I really like that the two of us are working together. I think that that's a funny dynamic, and I like doing scenes in there too. There's certain sets. Have you guys all done a tour of Hope Valley?
John was in charge of the tours.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, so yeah.
And Mark and I ran the buses out there.
Okay.
For your bus gals.
Great. So
we get all those Hearties on the bus and get them to the set tour. Yeah.
Well, so like there's so many sets, and I would venture to say every actor on the show has their favorite set, which is their favorite, and it may be the one that they act in the most, but it may just be the one that I don't know, that just feels the most comfortable. Anyways, I love the newspaper / Lee's office set. I like that set a lot. I love the fact that there's 3 doorways and then with a new window.
I
got the window, and I thought that was so funny. That was one of the first things that John Tinker actually pitched when we were talking about the idea of, I had this idea that Rosemary would kind of move into the space and take over, redecorate, and Lee's going, what has happened? Like, I said yes, and now is this even my office anymore? And John was like, yes. And she bashes a hole through the wall because she wants a window. And I was like, yes. And then it just became this recurring theme. Like in the blocking, they're always like, oh, let's put Rosemary looking through the window. I love it.
Always she's looking through that window. I love it.
And
well, Lucas has his
like
station on the balcony and you're like overseeing from the window. It's great.
Yes. Yeah.
It's your Juliet moment all the time. So yeah.
That's true. Well, I love Kevin's entrance with the window.
Yes. Wasn't that good?
Was so funny. That was perfect. It was like, oh my goodness. I really want to know what the conversation was with Rosemary and Lee when Rosemary is, telling him that he will have to have some costumes go into the office. I'm like, what would that look like?
I know. I feel like Rosemary, what I felt like probably happened is Rosemary said, oh, we're going to dress up for Halloween. And Lee would say, oh, that sounds fun. And then she pulls out her trunk of real costumes. He was probably thinking, I'll wear an eye patch and that'll be it. She's like, oh, no. And let me bring out my curling iron and do your hair.
Do his hair.
The bangs.
Diane Weinman Jordan from South Carolina wants to get she wants you to have the theater that was promised. And we thought that you had it when you had the chairs when the reveal.
We thought that's what was coming. Yeah.
Little theater. Just under that.
It's a theater for 2.
That sheet. The tiniest, just in our backyard.
Yeah.
I don't know if Rosemary would have been happy. I just think she would have been, this isn't quite what I had envisioned.
No. Especially the chairs going opposite directions. They should really all be facing Rosemary all the time. Yeah.
That's right.
I would have loved, I still would love to have a theater. I think, at the heart of Rosemary, she's always has been and always will be a performer. That's always going to be a part of who she is. And I would love to see that. And who knows, if we keep going, you never know what might happen. So
you guys, the talent in that cast, I mean, come on.
I know it just lends itself to a musical so
absolutely well. Yeah, just one stage.
Even if you don't have a theater, get Hickam to build you another stage, and then you can launch a musical with everybody.
It was so nice. That stage we used just once. It was so good. Out in although it was really cold, I will say it was really cold. That space is out in it's on the property where all the buildings are, but it was in the woods, and we've only shot in there a few times. In season 1, do you remember when had the church burned down, and then they were holding church service in the woods, and it was so cold, the coldest I think I've ever been filming When Calls the Heart, which says a lot because we filmed in winter months many times. It was so cold. And then that night when we were doing where Rosemary performs, it was again so freezing. So I don't know if that forest is jinxed for us or what. It's just like a freezing forest.
Yeah, I remember the first time we went to HFR, and that was we were on.
Oh my gosh, in that tent with like, I
Yes.
felt like it
With
was
the
leaking all over the
waterfalls.
place.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, I can't imagine if that was kind of miserable in that moment.
Mhm.
I can't imagine going outside, and but it was. But it was magical too. But we went through the woods, and they were like, "Oh, this is where they do the
Yes.
churches and
Mhm.
things."
That
like
was before the gravel on the roads too. It was all the mud puddles.
Oh, that's
All
right.
muddy, exactly. That
Yeah.
was our real like learning season, where because cars were getting stuck all the time coming in and out for work, and
Holy
even like
cow.
all the trailers that they set up were kind of like starting to sink, and that's
Oh,
when they
my.
put gravel presents its own challenges for our
Mhm.
sound department because it's so noisy.
Noisy.
So we often have to like re-record a lot of the dialogue if it's, especially if it's on Main Street and you see actors walking and talking down the middle of the street where the gravel is, or on the horses or whatever. I mean, it does present a lot of other challenges, but at least we're not sinking in the mud.
True. That's true.
Good.
Hearties used to sort of sneer when Rosemary came in. And now, of course, we cheer. Blanca Avalos from Huntington Beach wonders, when did you learn, or I don't even know if this is the case, when did you learn that the initial guest role in which you'd been cast would be a permanent, or were you permanent from the start? How did that work?
No, I was
Okay.
not permanent. I was actually under contract with another show, but I was on hiatus. And so I got approached about auditioning for When Calls the Heart for just a guest spot, 2-episode guest spot. And they didn't give me the script ahead of time. I just got a couple scenes to do. And so I went in and did the scenes, and I did them for Neil Fernley and for Michael Landon Jr. Did the audition. Audition went very, very well and was cast. And then I get the scripts and I read that last line at the end of, what was it, episode 12 in season 1, and where Elizabeth basically says, "See you later." And I say, "Oh, I'm not going anywhere." And I went, this sounds like I'm sticking around. But I didn't, but the show wasn't picked up even for a second season, and nobody knew that it was going to become the hit show that it ended up becoming. And so I just thought, oh, well, we'll see what ends up happening with that. So that was maybe in March or somewhere, March or April, and that we were filming that, and that that happened. And then I want to say it was like a month later that my show that I was like contractually on got canceled. So now I was unemployed, hadn't heard anything about When Calls the Heart, but literally the show was canceled. I get a call from our showrunner from my other show saying, sorry, the show was canceled. And the very next day, Brad Cravoy phoned me and he said, "Pascale, I'm the executive producer on When Calls the Heart," because I hadn't met him. He said, "I'm the executive producer. I need to know what your availability is because we want to bring you on as a series regular and lead going forward." And I said, "Well, your timing couldn't be better because my show was canceled yesterday." So that's kind of how it all unfolded. And then, we just kind of never looked back. I came on as a regular on When Calls the Heart, and it just kind of went like that.
Yeah. Can't imagine the show without you. It's what a blessing.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sorry that the other show didn't work out.
Well,
but
I mean,
so
it's
happy we have you.
Things happen for a reason, right?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
I was meant to be on the show. I really do believe that. It
No
gave me, like,
question.
not only is it one of my favorite characters I've ever played in my entire career, but I've met the most amazing people, both behind the camera, in front of the camera, and through this, meeting fans of the show and the most unsuspecting people I run into, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, When Calls the Heart has meant so much to me." And that really is such a special thing when I hear about something, because we create it kind of, it feels a little bit like in a bubble and you don't always know if the show is reaching people. So then when I hear those stories of how much the show is meant to people, it really does touch my heart, and it makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
If you could hear some of the testimonies on the Friday night of HFR, people give their testimonies about what the show means to them. You know, every year for 5 years they've done that, and it brings me to tears every.
I don't think
one.
there's a dry eye in the house. I mean,
my goodness.
from people emerging from domestic abuse to people overcoming, illness to, I mean, just, you can't even imagine the, the scope of influence that you all have had. And it's just a lovely gift. You covered this a little bit, but about the fact that you didn't know that Lee was going to be your love match necessarily. So when did you find out? When did Kevin tell you at some point?
He never told me. He never told me.
That bad boy.
Oh no.
Okay, he was getting back at you for the soup, or what's happening?
I think it became apparent that it was going in that direction partway through season 2. It became clear that they were wrapping up that Elizabeth, Rosemary, Jack triangle and pushing that aside, and that they were focusing all their efforts on this dynamic with Lee and Rosemary. And so I think I deduced it myself, but nobody ever told me that I was going to be stuck with him for the next 7 years.
Unbelievable.
Was he trying to keep the spark of spontaneity going or something? I mean, what was happening there? He just enjoyed the secret.
I guess so. I guess maybe he didn't want to put the pressure on. Like he thought, oh, if I tell her, then maybe it'll become disingenuous. I don't know. Like he never told me. That story came out that he had been told. I only found that out years later, that he said, oh, when I was cast, they told me that. And I said, you knew all along? You knew? It was years later that I found that out.
Trust is a hallmark of a good relationship, being able to communicate about things.
He obviously didn't trust me.
Yeah, obviously. Those building blocks, we're not quite there yet. Okay, so Annette Zopes, one of the admins who's from South Carolina, wants to know, were you as entertaining as a child as you are as a grown-up?
That's so funny. I feel like that's a question for my parents. My mom always created an environment of creativity and performance, always growing up, always. And so she was always putting on plays. She would write plays, and then me and my sisters would put them on, or she would come up with an idea and gather kids from the neighborhood, and she would put it on. She put together a circus we lived on an acreage. So she put on a circus a couple years, actually. We did a circus in our backyard. My parents just were like, okay, we're putting on a circus. My dad built me a trapeze. We had a huge barn. And so it was like hanging from the rafters. It was like,
my gosh.
So I feel like
so cool.
It was a really, honestly, when I look back on it, it was a very magical childhood. And so I don't know, was I always entertaining? I don't know. I feel like it was just, that was the fabric of our family.
Totally.
Performing and being creative and doing things like that. My sister, if honestly, I feel like looking back, if people thought who's going to become the actor, they probably would have said my sister. My sister was very like, just big, larger than life, and like very dynamic. But I was always like I was the younger sister by quite a bit, and I was always kind of like in the wings, just like, let me be a part of it, like I want to do it. And for the long time, my mom ran a children's drama program on weekends, and she said I was too young to be in it, and I went every Saturday. I went, but I was not allowed to be in the play. I was not allowed to perform. I just got to participate, but she was like, nope, you're not old enough. And I feel like that maybe set the groundwork of like, making me want it so bad. Of
Oh,
like,
right.
I've got to fight for this. If I want to get on that stage, I've got to really earn my spot and prove
Sure.
that I can do it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that all kind of led me down this path to where I am now.
that's
So what
cool.
is your sister doing now?
So yeah, my sister is a dancer, and
Oh.
then she also is an educator, and so she has her PhD in teaching educational curriculum through performance, like through movement, specifically through movement.
Cool.
And so so we both ended up kind of doing it in our own ways, but I feel like that hunger was like totally unknowingly. My mom didn't do it on purpose, but I feel like by not allowing me to do it for so long made me go, I'm going to fight for this.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Watch me. Watch
Yeah,
me do
watch
it
me.
now.
And that's why I always say, like, I used to always say to my mom, like, you guys always just kind of let me go with this dream of becoming an actor. Did you ever think of trying to talk me out of it? And she always said, we knew there was no talking you out of it. We knew it didn't matter what we said, you were going to do it anyways. So we just stepped back and just let you go wherever you were going to go with it. And even if you fell flat on your face, that was going to be your decision. So.
And as a mom, have you brought any of that into your, into your family?
I really thought I was going to end up with two kind of song and dance kids. I really just didn't. That's not who they are. They're creative and they're very confident, like performing in public speaking, but
Great.
a desire to be in drama or dance or singing, it's just not their thing. It's just not their thing. And I just kind of had to go, I got two soccer players. That's what I got. Never did I think I was going to be on the sidelines out in the pouring rain cheering on soccer, but that is without a doubt. Yeah, and a puppy, right? But without a doubt, that's their passion, and that's all you can hope for, right? That your kids have a passion, want to pursue it, and go
Absolutely.
really like 100% at it. And so I'm happy that they're there.
Yeah.
There you go. Wind calls the heart. That's what it is.
That said, I did for years, and I haven't been able to do it because of COVID, because they're not like, they don't allow outsiders into the school. But for years, when I wasn't filming Wind Calls the Heart or one of my movies, I would go in and I would do drama programs for their whatever class they were in. I would do a drama program, like I'd go in and teach drama to them, and they always have really enjoyed it, and I always really enjoyed it a lot.
So good.
Wow.
Fun. Well, obviously you have a bunch of energy if you're doing all of that. Acting, momming, teaching drama, all that. So we have a question. Thaisa Gamboa from Rio de Janeiro asked, well, okay, I'm gonna skip around here. The question I was thinking about is actually from Anna Carolina Bertani from Brazil also, and she finds Rosemary very high energy. She wonders how, amid all the 12-hour days, you find and maintain your characters' excitement and intensity, and just keep going.
I find it just feels very natural. I just think I'm a naturally high energy kind of person. I've got a lot of energy, and that doesn't feel exhausting to me in the slightest. Like Martin Cummins, who plays Gowan, he has said that to me for years, and you can understand from his perspective. Gowan is so understated and like reserved, and he's always like, Pascale, how do you do this? Like, how do you turn that on? And I don't ever really even feel like it's a turning on kind of thing. It just feels very natural, and I honestly genuinely feel so excited to be there, to be there and be playing the character, and I have so much fun that fun just fuels the character and fuels me to keep on going. I mean, I will say there's certain days that are a bit arduous. Any day that has the whole cast in one location all day, like where we're in the saloon shooting, it's usually like it'll be 1 or 2 scenes and everybody's there. those are taxing, and or like the whole cast in the church, those are taxing because there's so much coverage of everybody, and those scenes take so long to film. Those are hard on everybody, the cast, the crew. They take a lot of time, a lot of patience, and obviously people kind of, people's focus kind of runs all over.
Yes.
And so those are harder scenes, but I mean, generally we only have 1 or 2 of those in an episode, and the bulk of it is 2 and 3-hander scenes, and those, I just think they're so much fun. I love them so much, so I just don't even think of it as okay, I gotta turn it on now. It just is like, I'm so happy to be there, and I love the characters, so it's just all good.
It sounds like you also get the energy from your scene mates, kind of.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that that's key why Kevin and I enjoy working together so much, because we feed off each other so well, and we've got a really good repartee and energy going between the two of us. Symbiotic,
Yeah, and we love that. Okay, I'm gonna go back. I teased Thaisa Gamboa's question, so I'm gonna ask it now. She's from Rio de Janeiro, and she asked, did you have a friend or a family member who inspired your take on the character of Rosemary?
I don't. I mean, the short answer is no. I don't have one person that I feel like inspired this character. I mean, the character, I think, really came from what was on the page and my life experience. So my life experience is every person that I've met, and you kind of feed on all of that stuff to create a character and flesh the character out and find inspiration. And so yeah, I wouldn't say that there was one specific person. It's more just life experience and what's on the page, for me at least.
So kind of an amalgam of people that you've met in different situations and that.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Maybe your sister would be one of those if you said larger than life.
I would say more than my sister, it would be my mom. My mom was very dramatic and very theatrical, and she was really like the life of the party. And if anyone, I would say it would lean more towards my mom than my sister, for sure.
Wow. So we've talked with, I think, all of our writers this year.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it's so interesting. But they always talk about, they love to write Rosemary. So, and they are always kind of not even surprised, but wanting to know what your interpretation is, that kind of thing. So it was really interesting conversation that we've had. But we have a question that says, Carly Daniel of Orlando, Florida wonders, what moment from your 9 seasons in the show brought you the most surprise and or delight?
From all 9 seasons, what was the moment that gave me the most surprise and delight? Well, I would say I always like when the writers write me something, like, for example, the scene where Abigail and Rosemary have that scene, you referenced it early on, like, never give your heart unless there's jewelry involved. I always found those sentences, and Rosemary has so many throughout the 9 seasons. Like she said to Faith, I find gambling references not helpful in matters of the heart, something along like that. They're so bizarre. And I always love that. That's always been the key for me in terms of creating a character, is finding those bizarre kind of idiosyncrasies in a character. And so whenever the writers have given me one of those gems, I just feel like that's like, take it and run with it. And those have always been my favorite moments. I also love when Rosemary goes on a tangent. I think her tangents are hilarious and really shows how her mind works, like that her mind's here and there.
Totally.
Like it's all over the place. I don't know if you remember, but in the beginning of season 9, there was the scene where she hops out of the hot air balloon and she goes over, talks to Elizabeth, and then she starts talking about all these shows that she was in, and
Mhm.
and da 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 da.
Classic. That was classic.
It was
and
so good.
Like Elizabeth's kind of like, what's happening? I was so happy when I read that. But here's a funny behind the scenes about that scene. When the script came out, that was not in there. That monologue, it was a much shorter scene, very concise. And this friend of mine, who is a very close friend of mine, but not an actor at all, she was asking me about my process and how I memorize lines and stuff. And I said, generally I read the script as soon as it's available, and I'll often read it a second time, but I don't bother memorizing my lines until the night before I'm going to do the scene, because there's always revisions. And so there's no point locking something into my brain that's going to change multiple times. Sometimes it doesn't change, but often it does. And I find it much harder to unmemorize something and then rememorize than to just memorize it quickly the first time. And she was aghast. She said, I cannot believe that you leave it to the last minute. That doesn't seem very professional. She gave me this really like up one side and down the other. Keep in mind, she's not in the business and she's not an actor, but she was giving me such a hard time about it. So I was thinking about it, and I thought, you know what? Okay, for Jane, I'm gonna memorize this scene well in advance. And I memorized it, I think, a week in advance, the scene. And then I didn't look at it again because I thought, oh, I've got it memorized, I'm good to go. And then the night before, I did look at it, I think briefly, like very quickly, but I looked at the original script. I didn't look at the new. They always send us outside what are called sides, which are the scenes that we're going to film the next day. They email them to us. I didn't look at those. I looked at the script. And so I re-looked at the scene. Yep, got it. I'm good to go. Showed up that morning. I was like, I'm so prepared. I don't need to look at this. And it wasn't until I was in the van. I had gone through hair and makeup. I was in the van heading to set, which means, like, for a timeline for you, I arrive on set, I walk out. Usually we do a blocking, and then the director will send you away for 20 minutes while they light it, and then you're filming it. Mm-hmm. So I am driving up, I get out of the van, I'm walking over to the church where the balloon is and everything. And I go, what? It's a monologue. It's a monologue. When did this get in there? And I walked onto set, and I walked up to Erin, and I said, Erin, and my face, I think, was white. And she goes, oh God, you only got the revisions right now. And I said, yes, I only looked at these revisions. It's a monologue, Erin. And Erin was like, started killing herself laughing. She thought it was so funny. And I said, oh no, what am I going to do? And I thought there was a few pieces to the scene. So I thought, you know what? We're not going to film that part right away. That's okay. I'll like quickly memorize it, and I'll like work on it. But we're not going to be filming that part. We get on. It was Peter DeLuise, and Peter DeLuise. We're going to start with the coverage between Erin and Pascale. I thought, oh gosh, what am I going to do? And it was outside, so it wasn't even a huge lighting setup. So I think I had 15 minutes. And Erin went into the church with me. We did the blocking really quickly. Erin and I went into the church, and we just went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I said, okay, I can't do this with you anymore. I need to now do it on my own, because there's that monologue, right? Like I
monologue, yes.
Memorize it on my own. And we all know how I know, and I think you all know how Rosemary speaks. She's not, she's rattling stuff off. Like, it's fast. And I thought, oh God. So I just went into a corner, and I just like really dialed in and memorized it so fast, came back to Erin. We ran the scene a couple more times, and then we did it. And I came out of that so exhilarated.
It was so good.
I did it. You can bet I called Jane right after that, and I said, Jane, I'm never listening to you again. That was terrible advice. Why am I questioning my process that I've been using for the last 20 years? Like,
you're no.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Oh my word.
From the peanut gallery. No. We had heard that that was a last minute change, and I'm trying to remember. I think it was John Tinker
It was John, yeah.
or John. He
after
was
the first-
marveling
Yeah.
at that you had perfected that so quickly. And it was such a beautiful list of, actual show titles, but they were not easy. It was
No, it wasn't easy. A list is always probably the hardest thing to memorize
sure.
ever, because
You
it's
nailed
often
it.
like
Bravo.
not connected. But the one though that I will say that didn't work with my normal process of memorizing the night before, I sat down, I hadn't realized that the scene for the next day was the scene that you've seen this season where Rosemary rattles off Pig Latin. And I went to sit down the night before, memorize it just as I memorize everything in the same way. And I had to memorize that I had to come up with a completely different method to memorize that, because it was almost phonetical that I had to memorize it. And again, I knew Rosemary had to, if the gag was going to work, she had to rattle it off like nobody's business. And so I had to memorize that just backwards and forwards and upside down. And so that I had it. But I did look at that and go, I could have probably used a few more days on this one.
Impressive.
Yeah, that was genius.
It was so good. Wasn't that such a good scene?
So
I love
good.
that scene so much. I just thought, of course,
so cute.
that's one of the great things for viewers, but also for me, reading a script and I learned something new about my character. I'm like, of course she knows Pig Latin. That makes perfect sense. Never thought of it, but it makes perfect sense.
That's true. That's true. And you just rattled it out, like you said. And it was perfect. It was perfect execution. Sorry. Needed my words though. And and little Jack, he's so cute. I like Harlan. He
is such a sweetheart. He's really sweet, and he's very present. Like, he loves being in the scenes, and he kind of gives you this little mischievous look and mischievous eye, and it's good. It's really good. I think it's great.
Yeah, we interviewed or chatted with him and his parents, and
yes,
Peter was with us, and that was just such a treat. So thinking about kids, and that it's well, they say you have challenge with toddlers and infants and things like that. And there was a conversation with Rosemary and Lee that was going to the church, and you're just kind of resigning about not really, it's not in the cards kind of thing. But if we were in the Hearties world, what is the odds that maybe
the $1 million
friendly wager,
$1 million question? I don't know. I honestly don't know what the odds are. I will say that, and this I'm purely speaking as just a lover of TV and a lover of story, that often when you least expect it, that's sometimes the best moment for it to come along and surprise everyone. So I think the fact that they're resigned kind of almost makes it a perfect setting for them to have a child, find a child to come into their life. But I don't know.
Hearties are sure hoping for it. Still, it's always talk on the Facebook group.
Oh, I know.
I'm sure you hear about it all the time.
Yeah, it's kind of like in real life when you were first married and all these people keep bugging you about when you're going to have kids.
Yes,
It's like 9 seasons later, they're still asking you. So Hearties definitely have looked ahead and see that episode 12 has a very intriguing title, and it's Rock, period, a bye, period, baby, period. That's how it's written out. So not Rockabye Baby. It's there's clearly some definition there. So you can imagine that Hearties have many outlandish interpretations of this very cryptic title. And we would like you to give us your most outlandish or cryptic interpretation of this. Rock
This is news.
Bye Baby. There you go.
This is news to me. I did not know that what the episode was titled. I find it very perplexing myself. I don't know. Rock, period, abide, period, baby, period.
Yeah. Is someone climbing a mountain? I mean, what's happening with the rock? I don't know. Is Rosemary going on top of a rock to deliver
really,
or something?
Honestly, I don't know, but that's one heck of a metaphor there, or riddle. I don't know. I really don't know, and so I can't wait to hear what people's theories are after watching it. I have filmed the episode, and I don't know. So,
well, promise us you're never saying goodbye. We don't want a bye to be about. Sorry, Lori, go ahead.
Oh, you don't want a bye to be saying goodbye to somebody.
No,
of course not. We don't want that. I don't know. I don't know. And rock, I don't know. I don't know what. And all of them together, I'm not sure. I'm not being very helpful with this at all. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we have discovered in talking with the writers that we go back after examining something, and they'll be like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know what that meant." So maybe
get out there more time.
Did you ask them what rock? Did you
haven't yet.
The writers what that meant? I'm curious what they say.
I know.
I think we just found that it's just been with that like the past week or 2 weeks that we forgot that title.
Oh. Yes, it was released. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we're at episode, so this week it'll be, well, I don't know when you're going to air this, but at this present time when we're speaking, episode 8 is about to air, right? So we've got 8, 9, 10.
It's going into 9.
Sunday night.
9
so
and Sunday.
9, 10, 11, 12. We've got 4 more episodes to go. And this Rock-a-bye Baby is 12?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Well, good to know you didn't climb any mountains or whatever. I don't know. We'll see.
Rosemary and Lee going to start rock music 50 years early. 30 years old. Can you imagine?
No, that would be Flo and Ned because they have the interconnected web.
That's right.
Word puzzles, interconnected word puzzles.
Interconnected word puzzles and the Band-Aids.
That's right.
I feel like after that song and dance, rock music is in their future.
Possibly, quite possibly.
Pascale, I think back to the HFR when you had a cold and you were with Kevin and you went table to table. I'm sure that was a miserable day, but you're such a trooper and you're so generous with the Hearties.
Thank you. I do want to clarify, it wasn't a miserable day. I wanted to be there so badly because those days are always so
precious.
So precious, so exciting to connect with everybody and meet people who, we've been interacting with on Twitter and live tweeting with, and meet them face to face. Those are so important to us. And so I wanted to be there. I was so sick. So I did do the panel and then the table to table. And then I did go home and I got right into bed because I had lost my voice almost completely. I was really sick.
Yeah.
But I did that. Those days are so precious. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that one day soon in the near future, we can resurrect the Hearties family reunion because it was so special for so many people involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And
our hope too.
And it was just kind of funny because it reversed roles with Kevin speaking for you when you had laryngitis.
I know.
Yeah, it was great. It was wonderful. Well, Hearties, we know that you never want to miss a moment of Pascale's performances. And so we want you to tune in this Sunday night at 8:00 on the Hallmark Channel. And of course, tweet with Pascale and with all of us on Twitter using the hashtag Hearties. We'll see you soon. Thank you.